Welcome to Plant Your Seed. I'm your host, Fred Ferris. On each episode, we share stories of how ordinary people have transformed their lives. Each story is compassionate, each story is authentic, and each story is a transformation. Here are the stories of the people who are changing our world by transitioning to a plant-based diet. Today on Plant Your Seed, joining us from Toronto, Canada, we have Joanne McArthur. Joanne is an award-winning photojournalist, sought-after speaker, photo editor, and the founder of We Animals Media. Welcome, Joanne.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for being here on Plant Your Seed. It's such an honor to have you on the podcast. Now, I could have gone on and on with your intro. You're the author of 3 books. You have all of these accolades. Wildlife Photographer of the Year, Nature Photographer of the Year, Picture of the Year International, the Global Peace Award, just to name a few. Now, what are you trying to achieve with your work, and what is it about focusing on animals that's important?
How fun that you use the word focus because I am an animal photojournalist and I use what I'm good at to help make the world a better place. And people often ask me, well, you're a photographer, you found your stride, you know what you're doing, what should I do? And it's that, my advice is that whatever you love doing and what you're good at, you can use that, whatever it is, to make the world a better place, whether you're in the arts or science or just about anything. So for over 20 years, I've been taking photos of animals in the human environment, in the Anthropocene, images that show how we treat them, how we use and abuse them, give us a picture of that so that we can see, think, change, think critically. We don't get to see animals in factory farms. And when we do, it's like, outright lies, happy farmers holding a chicken outside of a red barn. It's not showing the reality. So that's my job, is to show the reality. That is my contribution to the animal advocacy movement.
Now, I've heard from other activists that bearing witness pays a heavy price on their souls, that it's difficult to get those images out of their heads. How do you deal with the difficulty of bearing witness to all these atrocities?
I'm very driven to do it, and I can see the change that comes about when I do it. And it's very hard on me, and it's very hard on people who see the images as well. But I've learned to go back and go back. And certainly I have been traumatized by this, and I care very much about the individuals I photograph, and it hurts me that I can't rescue them. I've met millions of animals over the course of 20 years, but I focus on the change that I can create from bearing witness. Bearing witness is also galvanizing. I will say, every time I meet animals in some kind of distress, my commitment to them is renewed. Mm-hmm. And I'm not afraid of the suffering that it causes me, because I turn that suffering into something. That's actually why I want to encourage people to bear witness generally, whether it's going to the trucks that animals are transported in, whether it's through images, it can change you for the better, and to not be so afraid of the suffering that you will feel from bearing witness.
How do you disconnect from the slaughter, the cruelty, and how has it affected your life personally?
I had to work through it. I was diagnosed with PTSD in the early days from bearing witness to so much suffering and not knowing how to carry that. But over time, I've learned through my studies of Buddhist philosophy and through working through trauma and having great therapy, and fundamentally realizing that I have just this one short life to live. And I'm a very joyful person, and I want to live it joyfully. And I deserve to live it joyfully. Everybody does. All those animals I meet, me, everyone, we deserve to live, joyfully. And so I focus on that. And that's how I live now. I was able to get out of the headspace of trauma and into a space where I'm, really looking forward to every single day.
Now, what is the most challenging part of being an animal photojournalist?
Well, access. Often we have to trespass or lie or pose as someone we're not. in order to gain access to these industries we want to uncover. And that's dangerous. We put ourselves at risk, not only physically, but financially, psychologically. It's really unfortunate because all we're trying to do is good in the world. We don't sneak into places because we're bad people trying to break in and terrorize the neighborhood. We're just trying to do these compassionate acts, taking images and videos so that people can see. So it's one of the worst parts. And I hope for a day when we don't have to do it and when we can just get permission, when animal industries are a lot more transparent. And it's also really hard not helping the animals in front of us. I engage with them, I look at them, and they look at me. And those are often the best images, those which show a connection. And I just feel terrible that I'm not helping them. I mean, no one's ever going to go into those places who actually wants to help them. And so here I am, me and my crew, this one chance that they have, and we're not able to do it either.
What is it about the eye contact of the animal that's so important to you?
Well, it's the same with people. You can, let's say we're looking at an image of a boat with 100 refugees crossing the Mediterranean. You can't connect with 100 people. You can connect a little more with maybe 10. You can connect more with 2. But then when you get down to one connection between the photographer and their subject, that person, it makes all the difference. And especially when they're looking at you. And this is, a classic rule of photojournalism, that connection. If someone is looking into the camera lens, they're looking out into the world at all of us. And it's no different with animals.
What was it like witnessing the use of a captive bolt gun in the moving animals film?
Well, as an animal photojournalist, I'm often up close and personal with varying degrees of violence, including the end of life for many animals at the slaughterhouse, or when they're dying in a factory farm due to lack of care. These events, these killings are going to happen whether or not I'm there. And so I steel myself and prepare myself to be there to witness their end of life so that others can see. And it's very sad and it's very solemn. It's heartbreaking and it's wrong. And it's wrong because we don't need to take a life in order to lead happy and healthy lives. And yeah, I wish when I'm that close to this kind of violent death that I could stop it, but I can't. I mean, I could, as a single person, stand there and kick and scream and put myself in harm's way, but it would pause things briefly and they'd escort me out and they would continue on. And what good is that? So it's better for me to be there and do the job I'm there to do, which is document as best I can and do it artfully and with poignancy so that I'm creating images that people really can look at. These images are classically hard to look at. No one wants to look at violence towards others. It makes us feel a lot of things, including, not only sadness, but shame, and we feel defensive, all these things. And so I often have a very short time to do the best work that I can. And sometimes that's 3 minutes. And so I had better be on my game. I had better be thinking about composition and getting close and doing the best possible job so that I can do the most with those images. And I can't say that so that their death is not in vain, because their death is always in vain, but so that I can at least do something to help create change.
It seems that this really bothers you.
Sure, yes. Yeah.
I mean, like on a personal level, it's just you're caught between you can't do anything and that helplessness. How does that feel when you're that helpless and you know that you have to tell the story because that's the only way to kind of keep it going?
Well, how I feel about it is one of the least important things here. And so I don't put how I feel about it high up in the hierarchy of things that need to get done and what's important. It's a short answer, but like it's it's the truth. Yeah. It's how I'm able to continue.
So you just distance yourself from the image through your
Well,
camera.
yeah, no, I don't distance myself. In fact, I open myself up fully to feel um to really empathize and to feel what that animal might be going through. And that's part of why I take good pictures because I care so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if I was emotionally closed off, my images would feel a little more distant. But I know that I can bear those emotions. I can bear witness and I can bear those emotions. If I was taking the images and nothing was happening with them, I would probably stop. It wouldn't be worth the emotional burden because nothing would be coming of it. But a lot is changing because of the images that animal photojournalists take.
When you say a lot is changing, what do you mean by that?
Well, in terms of photojournalism and animals, we are finally seeing these stories in the media. Today in the New York Times, there's a big opinion piece with a graphic image that says animal rights activists are actually to be commended, not mocked,
Mm.
because they're right, because factory farming is a global atrocity. And that they should be listened to and that we need to wake up to these stories. So what's been very exciting to me over the course of my career, 2 decades now in animal photojournalism, or APJ for short, is that these stories were near impossible to have in print, let alone in the New York Times. And now we are seeing them globally.
What is it about live transport that makes it important to photograph?
It's an aspect of the animals' lives that we just don't consider, if we even are considering any aspect of their lives. Some of us are just really uninformed about how they live. We might think of the days gone by of animals in fields, or people might be a little more enlightened and know that animals spend time in cages and don't go outside, which is a fact for billions of animals every year.
Mm.
But the transport, many countries have really antiquated laws, especially here in Canada, about humane, there's that word, um, kinder modes of transport. And animals are shipped in extremes of cold and heat. Many animals die in transport because of the temperatures and the crowding and the injuries that they can sustain, lack of food, lack of water. Some animals, end up going days without water because these things, there might be laws, but they're not enforced. And, you got to keep the economy going. Rules are broken, and rules are broken all the time, which is why I was working at the Turkish-Bulgarian border in that film, Moving Animals. I was there with a group called Eyes on Animals, and they were monitoring the state of the animals, whether they had water, whether they had food, talking to the drivers about how long they'd been on the road. And quite often that time exceeds what is legal. So, people need to know. People need to know about that part of their lives. And I think the more we know, the more we can think critically. So again, not just the animal, but where do they live? How are they transported? How are they killed? These are all things we need to know.
You said that there were things that they were doing that were illegal. What happens in that case?
Nothing.
Right.
Nothing, because things need to keep moving. There are places where you can stop and let the animals out. It's required. It depends on the country. You have to stop every X number of hours to let them off the truck, give them water, give them rest from the travels. But if things are behind or if there have been long lineups at a border, often you're just going to keep going, and no one's really monitoring that. That's not to say there are never fines, but like it's so rare, it's laughable.
Is there anything that you enjoy about your work? I mean, obviously you enjoy your work, but obviously it's a very difficult situation that you're in.
I'm very privileged to do this work, and every day I'm happy to go to work, whether that's the field work or whether that's at my desk, and often it's at my desk. So what was once me with a camera running the We Animals project is now a not-for-profit photo agency, We Animals Media. We have 15 staff and over 90 contributing photographers. And we're a gorgeous little community of people working really hard on this mission. And so every day I get to work with my fantastically smart colleagues, passionate people, giving assignments, raising money, doing all the things that you need to run an NGO. And I'm very happy to be in this space, and very happy that we've been able to coin a genre of photography, which is animal photojournalism, and talk about that and get that out into the world, which is I think it's just a necessary new genre. We needed to give it a name and a framework, because we have conservation photography and wildlife photography and pet photography. That's what people think about when they think that I photograph animals.
Right.
No, it's not that at all. It's a form of photojournalism. It's a form of conflict photography. But photojournalism, we didn't want to just call it that, because that's about the human condition, whereas animal photojournalism includes everybody.
How does it feel to know that you are making a difference in the world?
I should think about it more. I should just give myself and my team a pat on the back a little bit more. But
Yes,
we're really focused.
You should.
I don't walk around thinking like we're making a difference in the world. But the difference that we're making in the world is what drives me forward every day, and fills me with purpose. And we get feedback every day, whether it's on social media about what we're publishing, or whether it's a new donor who's come to us and said, hey, we want to give you $10 a month or $100 a month. We're getting constant feedback, or getting published. All these things. This is proof that we're on the right track.
Let's switch over to your plant-based journey.
Yeah.
How and when did you transition to a plant-based diet?
My mom moved out to the countryside when I was, I don't know, 18 or 19, can't remember. And she had 2 dogs, a cat, and 10 chickens. And the chickens were out running around with the dogs and the cat, and they were all, just a mesh of animals. And I would play with them all. I got to know chickens. And some of them wanted to sit on my lap, and some of them wanted to sit on my shoulder, and they like to be stroked. And I got to see their complex personalities. And this was heartbreaking to me, because chicken was my favorite food. And I thought, oh, I didn't know. I kind of knew, but I never really thought about it and didn't want to think about it. So then I was faced with their wonderful complex sentience, and I realized I couldn't eat these animals anymore. And that's what set me on the path. That's what set me to looking at PETA pamphlets. It's what set me towards a farm sanctuary internship, which was a few years later, in 2003. And at Farm Sanctuary, if you want to intern there, you have to be vegan while on the premises out of respect for the animals. And I thought, oh, that's so extreme. That's an extremist thing. And I had become vegetarian, but I thought, wow, well, that's impossible. But I really want to do this fellowship, this internship rather. So I'll be vegan for that month, and then I'll come home and be vegetarian again. But after 24 hours of being vegan, lo and behold, I felt something that I hadn't felt before, which was that I was aligned intellectually, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, in every way. I was aligned with myself and my values. And then I was upset again. I was like, oh no, life as a vegan, it's going to be so hard. I didn't know how to bring that back to my world and integrate it. I was frankly very scared, and I thought I would feel deprived. I thought I would have a hard time socially with family members and so on. But I figured all these things out, and I stuck with it. And upcoming is my 20-year vegan anniversary, April 1st.
Congratulations.
And, while there are issues with vegans and family members who eat animals and so on, after a while, I decided to just not focus on what my that's hilarious. My family were eating, because it was just causing me a lot of stress. And I was so passionate about them seeing the world as I saw it and stopping eating animals. And they didn't really. And I thought, I'm just going to take the stress off myself and do my work. And that felt great. Um, and as a matter of fact, a lot of my family members have significantly reduced the animals they eat. And my sister's a hardcore vegan animal rights activist, which is just gorgeous.
Nice.
But yeah. So that was my journey, and I found that there were some hurdles, but I did acclimatize, and people acclimatized to me very quickly.
Now, how did it feel when you first realized that you were aligned with your values?
Hmm. A sense of relief. That's how I felt. A sense of pride, and a relief was the dominant feeling. And who doesn't want to feel that? You know?
It's interesting, right? Because everybody kind of feels they're a good person, right? And then when you realize that you actually are a good person, that's a good feeling.
I think everyone is a good person, and I think a lot of people care about a lot of things, but may not have the path, may not see the path, may not have the tools to learn and change, may not have the support. I know a lot of people like Miyoko Shinner from Miyoko's Cheese. She calls non-vegans pre-vegans. I
Call
love
some
that.
what? Pre-vegans?
Pre-vegans. She calls people pre-vegans. Yeah. But I try not to begrudge people too much. I try to support people on the journey and whatever journey they're on.
Mm.
I want people to not feel intimidated by me and my decisions at all. People often are defensive towards animal rights activists and vegans, and so that's not a kind of space I want to create for anybody. And I want to encourage people very compassionately to make any change that they want to make, and just cheer them on in that direction, because that's the direction we all need to go in, not just for animals to reduce their suffering, but for the environment, for every reason, for our health. We need to stop eating animals.
Did you notice anything positive or negative besides the feeling alignment with your values once you changed over to being vegan?
Yeah, the negative was that I gained weight because I was eating too much pasta. I hadn't made a good switch. I was like, cool. I love pasta. I get to eat pasta all the time now. But I gained a few pounds and I was like, oh, this doesn't feel good. No, no, no. Like everyone needs to eat a well-rounded diet. Whatever you're eating, it needs to be healthy and well-rounded. So I was like, okay, McArthur, get back to those proteins and the legumes and the salads. And so I did a little bit of a rebalance. And I actually then felt physically fantastic. And my system had always had a problem with dairy. And we know that a lot of people have a hard time
Mm.
digesting dairy, but we just consider it a fact of life. But I was really, really happy with, once I leveled out a bit, which didn't take long, how physically, how much, I guess, how much livelier I felt.
You mentioned you had some struggles with your transition. Can you explain more about that?
I think it was the social pressures. It was
Mm.
you know, what will the family think? What will I have at the restaurant? Will I make people uncomfortable sitting there with my meal? And you do. People are always like called to look at their own meals when they see you eating like a healthy vegan meal, a cruelty-free meal. Um, but that's it. And people often ask me, like, what do you do when you travel? Well, I'm not a vegan who needs to eat all of the vegan junk food every day. I don't need the plant-based margarine. I don't need the Beyond Burger. I love those things. I have them in my
Mm.
home. But everywhere I go, there are things to eat. You just have to ask questions. Does this have fish stock? If it does, eat something else. But I travel a heck of a lot.
Mm.
And I find that when I'm on the road, my meals are simpler, and that's okay. Just I don't stress about it. Don't stress about it. You're away for a week or two, your diet changes a little bit. I think vegans stress that they're not going to have all the things, but like no one has died of protein deficiency, and no one gets scurvy after, like 2 weeks of being away. And in fact, we would never get scurvy because usually if we can't eat other things, we intake our, uptake our fruit. So I just leaned into it and relaxed a little bit. I lived in a tiny village in Africa for 6 weeks while vegan. And, there was a lot of rice and cabbage and peanuts. And we'd go to town once a week, or someone would go to town once a week. And I always said, get me another jar of peanut butter. And that was totally fine.
and,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of apples everywhere too.
Well, not there, but there were a lot of
Not
other things,
there, but
mangoes and avocados and all these good things. Yeah.
now, what is one thing that's really exciting for you right now with your project, We Animals?
It's exciting that there are so many people drawn to it. People who want to work with us or contribute their animal photojournalism or talk about it, hear about it. It is a necessary thing in the world that needs to grow. So that means there's excitement in my job every single day.
Now, how did you get the courage to start photographing animals?
I'm not sure if it's courage. I would call it sheer bloody-minded determination. Yeah, photographers are a passionate bunch, especially conflict photographers. We're driven to get an important story. Photojournalists see what needs to be seen in the world, and we go. Sometimes we just can't help ourselves. We're just absolutely driven to be where there are important stories, and I'm very passionate about that. And so it takes money and planning and effort, and you put yourself at risk, but the rewards the rewards are numerous, whether it's for the animals first and foremost, but also personally, I feel like there was a job well done and I can feel proud of that. And that also gives me energy to do the next assignment and the next and the next.
What is it about animals that makes you so passionate?
Well, really, these are sentient, complex animals just like us. And I revolt against this hierarchy that we've had for so long that says that animals are for our use. And we have domesticated them and we have incarcerated them. And industrial farming is getting more and more brutal. It's getting filthier. It's getting tighter. It's a mass production of a living being. And I put myself in their place. I'm very empathetic. And any animal that I see, I look at them in wonder, and I want for them a happy life, whether it's the raccoons who are struggling in the neighborhood or the pig in a gestation crate. They are all so very harmed by us every single day. And it doesn't need to be that way. We can all make much kinder decisions to help and support and to not harm, create space, create sanctuary for those we can rescue. There's so much we can do. But I find that, well, I know that what we have done to animals is fundamentally and deeply unjust. It needs to change. So this is what I do. I do photojournalism to help. I'm one piece of the puzzle. And by I mean animal photojournalism is one piece of the puzzle when it comes to creating change. And I love that animal advocacy, the space is really dynamic, much more dynamic than it's ever been. We have people coming at it from all angles, again, from ethology and animal law and the arts and podcasts, like media. It's all over the place. So it's good. We're doing well. Things are getting worse for animals because there are more and more animals being used every year, but things are also getting better because more laws are in place, more challenges to animal industry practices, more vegans. So we just need to keep tipping things in this positive direction.
Now, do you have a cookbook or book or documentary that you recommend to people who are transitioning to a plant-based diet?
There is a new book by Anna Pippis.
I love Anna
Released 2 years.
Pippis.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, great. She's such an all-star.
she
And
is.
her cookbook is just so much fun and so easy and delicious and indulgent and like comfort foods. And, if you want to see some easy recipes, well, go there. And there's also Isa Chandra Moskowitz.
Mm-hmm.
I may be getting her name wrong. She is so much fun. Her cookbooks are so much fun and healthy and hearty, and like she's just such a pleasure. So I'd send people to all of her books.
Now, finally, can you give me one word to describe how you felt before you were vegan, and one word to describe how you feel now that you are vegan?
I can't. I'm sorry, but
Oh, come on.
there are too many words to describe my life before, but I can give you a word for after my, during veganism. I think that transition made me freer.
Okay.
So not free, but like, we're all on a path to self-actualization and enlightenment, hopefully.
Yeah.
And when I became vegan, I became freer. I also became happier. I also became more fulfilled.
So freer, happier, and fulfilled.
Yeah. Maybe that makes up for the lack of a word from, being pre-vegan.
Okay, we'll go with that. Such a
Okay.
pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for taking the time. Now, what is the best way for people to follow you, support you on Instagram, the web, or social media in general?
Thanks so much for inviting me to speak. It's been a pleasure. And thanks for this last question. It's an important one. People can see our photojournalism, our efforts for animals, and support us via social media and our website. And so we're called We Animals Media. And our Instagram and Facebook is We Animals Media. Very easy. Same with Twitter. You can find us on LinkedIn as well. And our website is a really good resource for who we are, images you want to use for your campaigning. We make over 20,000 images available for free to anyone helping animals. And it's used globally every day. So I encourage people who need images of animals to use that. And that's where you can take our masterclass. We have an 8-episode masterclass on how to do animal photojournalism, because we get asked about that all the time. And that's also where you can go to make a donation and support us. And that's how we do this work. We exist on private donations, small and large, and grants.
Thanks again, Joanne, for being on Plant Your Seed.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure. I had fun.
Hope you are inspired by this story, and remember, it's never too late to plant your seed. Links to everything we talked about on the podcast can be found on Instagram at plant.yourseed in the show notes tab in the bio. If you enjoyed the show, remember to leave us a review, and until next time, thank you for listening.